the first appointment, even if we're going to do labs. Because then one, it allows you to say to a patient, okay, we're going to do labs, we're going to follow up in 4 weeks. How do we put all of this together from the whole weekend? Do you have a question, Teddy? No. From the whole weekend, how do we put this together, right? Well, you guys know how much I love algorithms. I did not make this at all. So, it would be amazing to have something like this where you could put your patient in at the top and you go through and check all the boxes and you go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and out, spit, and output, out, spit, output, and output. It's been a long weekend. Give you something at the end that tells you what to do. That sucks. One, it's boring. Okay, I like being intellectually challenged on cases. Two, it puts people into an algorithm, and as we've already discussed with the lab testing, just because the lab testing is off doesn't mean that's clinically relevant. Just because it's normal doesn't mean that patient's perfectly healthy. Okay? So I put together a very complicated, not this complicated, but very complicated algorithm. First thing you do, this is how I approach the concepts of what we've talked about this weekend. One is you have your initial consultation, you review paperwork, you get a really good history, you do a really good PE, and usually on the first visit, we are ordering some form of labs. Okay? And remember, this is for my patients who are coming in for a PRP consult, stem cell consult, something like that, okay? These are the foundational work that I will start in 90% of patients. If a patient is not eating 5 to 6 ounces of fish a day, I'm typically just putting them on a fish oil to begin with. I'm not going to test them initially because it's likely going to be low if they're in chronic pain and they're not eating fish or a lot of hemp hearts or chia seeds, okay? Organ meats, 3 ounces 3 to 4 times a week, as long as there's no concern for copper or vitamin A excess. So for example, they're not taking a whole bunch of copper supplements or they're not pounding cod liver oil. Those two things, I don't know why there's 3 stars there. Ignore that one there. These two things are going to, again, help things on the cellular level. This is our cell membrane health, which is going to impact everything. This here is just getting more micronutrients in people that we are likely deficient in. And then we have our nasal breathing, our stress management, our sleep, our movement, our nutrition. So it's not always all of these 4 things. Again, it's going back to looking at which ones are going to be most important and why. So patient has really bad stress management and they don't sleep well. They get good exercise and their nutrition's good. I'm going to focus on the nasal breathing and the blue light blocking glasses. That's their first appointment. Okay? I always like implementing things on the first appointment, even if we're going to do labs. Because then one, it allows you to say to a patient, okay, we're going to do labs, we're going to follow up in 4 weeks, so that we don't have a patient going, are my labs back yet? Are my labs back yet? Because they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, really excited to work with you. You haven't told them what to do yet because they're waiting for labs. Okay? So then it gives us some time to review that stuff and get them at least starting in the direction of they're going to heal better from this eventual procedure we're doing. Then you meet up with them anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what labs you're doing, right? If we're doing a genetic test, it's probably going to be 4 weeks because it's going to take some time to come back. If it's just CBC, CMP, vitamin D, and a thyroid panel, you can probably meet them in 2 weeks because you're going to have labs back pretty quick. We review the lab work. From that lab work, the way I look at it is I choose the weakest 1 to 2 areas or systems to start working on. Well, how do you choose that? This is kind of a rough priority order on how I think about things. If patients have raging infections, deal with them first, right? They got massive candida overgrowth in their gut on stool testing. They have active EBV. Deal with those things. Those things need to be gone, okay? If there's no raging infections, the first place that I tend to look at is that basic methyl support we talked about. Because again, that's helping things on that cellular level in the same way that the fish oil is. I just want to know, hey, do I really need to push creatine, phosphatidylcholine, or can I more so do magnesium and trace minerals? Or do I need to add in methyl balance, for example? Then the next priority is endocrine, and then working on inflammation, and then specific stuff for mitochondria like NAD. Okay? With this, and I should have put one thing in here, but with the raging infections, there's also like, if a patient comes back as iron deficient, or they're anemic, like this should be raging infections and big red flags, like full clinical diagnoses, okay? Someone comes back and their ferritin is 3, don't go, well, that's kind of mitochondria, so I'll put that at the bottom. Address that. Or if comes back and their CRP is 25, that bumps it up in priority. So again, this is why an algorithm like this doesn't work, because it gets way too complicated when you really start trying to individualize this stuff for patients. So most of the time, the things that I'm doing in this reviewing up until when we decide to do an injection is basic methyl support and hormones. Because when your cellular membranes work better, when you have more micronutrients, when your methyl cycle works better and your hormones are bumped up, usually a lot of other stuff falls into place. Usually you're not starting with NAD because it's such a small thing that can be powerful, but if all the other stuff isn't working, it's not going to have the impact that you want it to. And then we decide on our timing for the injection based on what we have put together of this patient beforehand. Right? That goes back to the very first day when we looked at, hey, all of these things are not good, so we should probably wait 3 months before we do this PRP treatment. But in that time frame, these things are going to improve so you have a better clinical response. Or it comes back, yeah, you know, they don't really have a lot of, doesn't seem like they have a lot of big methylation issues. Their DHEA is low, but everything else seems to kind of be fine. All right, let's get you scheduled for 4 weeks. We get them booked. And then go forward with the injection. And then you continue working on all this stuff as you wait for their next injection, or at least their next follow-up. Okay? Any questions on this stuff here, on how to actually implement this with your patients?